much fun. Welcome back to our Asking for a Friend podcast. My name is Andrew Allison. This is my friend, Lenita Weber, and we're glad to be in conversation. Maybe as a way of further explanation or ongoing explanation, we're doing these conversations not because either one of us, even though Lenita's way smarter than I am, either one of us care to be the answers person. What we do want to demonstrate and initiate, if we can, some way spawn conversations between you and your friends. And we're hoping that these conversations would include the good stuff, kinds of fun things that are worth discussing once you get past things like American politics or football, hockey problems that the Maple Leafs may or may not have. So let's have some fun with this. You've actually had this question's come to you, and so I'm going to throw some questions your way today, and intrigued about the things that you'll say. How do I find God? Person comes to you, and they know that you're a pastor in a church, so they know you've got a bit of a God angle, and they say, Lenita, how do I find God? What's your response to that?
I love this question. I think that behind this question, we sometimes wonder, like, do I have to do something special? Do I have to go to a special place or get myself in a special state to find God? What do I need to do? And I think it's actually pretty simple. We ask him if we can find him, if he can help us find him. In the Bible, it tells us that God wants to be found. He wants to be found by us when we seek him. And so it's just as simple as asking him, hey, can you help me find you? And then I think there's also a piece of knowing what to expect, because we can sometimes expect like this amazing experience, and that can happen to people. They'll feel instantly transformed or they found God. But more often, God likes to work through people. He loves to work with people all of the time. And so I would just say, start paying attention to the people in your life who know God or who he brings across your path. You may even want to become or check out a church, because there are often a lot of people there who love God and can start to talk with you about him. But I think that's what I would do, is just ask God to help. What would you say to that?
So I think that it's maybe reassuring, maybe disconcerting to tell the person, well, I actually think God's looking for you. Like he's on the hunt for you. He's the hound of heaven. I think Jesus says those sorts of things. No one comes to me unless the Father draws him. So the very fact that you're looking, the very fact that you're asking, how can I find God, is like, man, he's got you, and he's drawing you in. He's bringing you to himself. So for me too, I'd probably get like all worked up and a little bit specific, because I think people have these sort of broad general ideas of God, like God's this and maybe God's that. And for me and you, it's about Jesus. Like when God wanted to make sure that we were on his radar or that we mattered to him, he came in Jesus and came after us. And I find Jesus kind of makes clear things that get God foggy.
For sure.
And so that's a helpful thing for me. Okay, so next question that a person would say would be, what about prayer? How does prayer work? How do I pray?
Right. It can feel confusing because it can kind of seem like we're talking with an imaginary friend. And again, I think we maybe wonder if we have to do something special. But prayer is just having a conversation with God like a friend. So it actually starts by just telling him what's on your mind, on your heart. I'm lonely, I'm angry, I'm frustrated, I'm happy. All of those things we can just start talking with him about. The other thing I've found really encouraging is that prayer is something that we're always learning. And it's not like we have to have these perfect words and have it all together to pray. It's like any conversation. We get to learn how to have these conversations, and there's give and take. I love it that Jesus' disciples, these were people who had grown up in a culture of prayer, and they still came to him and said, Jesus, can you teach us how to pray? And that's when he gave them some words to use. He didn't say, well, you should have this together by now, or I can't believe you're asking this. He's like, yeah, for sure. And here's some words you can actually use to help you start praying. And this is where we get these beautiful words, our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. You might know some of those words. That comes from Jesus teaching us how to pray. So that could also be a place to start, is use some of the words that we're given in the Bible to help shape what we're talking to God about. How about you? I know that you enjoy praying.
I'm actually not good at it. And I know that sounds like false humility, but I'm not good at it.
Hear you.
If I could say I was good at something, I'd be reading my Bible. And I knew I was supposed to pray at university. I'd wake up get out of bed, read my Bible, and then pray for half an hour and then fall asleep. So I only prayed for 30 seconds, wake up with a coil ring binder imprint on my face. So it's been a struggle for me. Yeah. I'm going to come to you. I'm going to ask you just personally how it lands for you, what prayer looks like for you. For me, I'm best helped when I'm walking and talking. I say it out loud. And here's how it's going on in my head when I'm praying. It kind of goes to porridge, because then all of a sudden I'm thinking about the next thing I need to do. But when I'm in, like any conversation, when we're doing this, I'm focused and I'm in the game. So it helps me. I think Eugene Peterson used to say, "Go garden, do something active. Yeah. Don't find yourself sort of slumped up against the pillows again. If that's what happens to you in prayer, get after it." One of the things that is helpful for me is to sort of, again, sort of like, how do I find God? God's actually in hot pursuit of me. And then how is it that God sort of views this whole prayer thing? Arms folded. Is he going to get it right this time? Is he going to wake up with a coil ring binder imprint on his face again? One of the kids in the youth group last year or the year before was saying, we were talking about prayer, and she said, "I just feel so bad because I pray at night and I'm praying and I'm talking and I fall asleep. And God must be so upset with me," she said. And I'm like, no, not at all. Can you imagine if we have 4 boys, but if I had a little girl, maybe my granddaughter, and she was on my lap and she was telling me stories and she was talking and she fell asleep on my arms, I'd be like, yes, not like, "Wake up, kid, finish your story. I'm trying to get this straight." Not at all. So there is like, how is it that the living God views prayer, like invites us into this and wants to hear from us, wants to be in conversation, listen, talk, the whole thing. So these are good things that you've just said. How does it land for Lenita Weber? How does prayer land? Like, I mean, when we're at our best, when you're at your best, what does it look like? Feel like, sound like?
It's hard. It's been a struggle too. And I think a lot of the struggle is I have expectations of myself or expectations of what it's supposed to be like. So learning to let go of these expectations that I need to have a really good way of expressing myself, or I should feel a certain way when I'm praying, and just learning how to be. So I love gardening, and that's one of my favorite ways to pray. But I try different things. Sometimes I'm helped by writing prayers out. This is what's on my mind, and especially if I'm feeling a little bit troubled or anxious, often I'll go to writing prayers. I've grown to love praying from the Psalms, because they just have this huge range of experience that they allow us to express. And they are always redirecting my hope towards God. So I love using Psalms. I like to try to pray quietly. I've tried silent prayer. I'm a disaster at it. I think that the first time I tried it, I tried to go for 20 minutes. It's such a bad start. Like 5 minutes is a good place to start. And that was hard enough. Because,
let's just be silent. Yeah,
just being silent and being present to God and to Jesus. And, my brain's going everywhere. So having said that, the more I practice that, the more I appreciate it. It's never perfect, and I'm not good at it, but it's still, God still meets me there. That's the beauty of it, eh?
Yeah, it is good. It's good. And I find too, it's better praying together. So we pray Wednesday mornings. You go to your spot, I'll go to my spot. A handsome young man that works for us, Seth, who's behind the camera. Godly young women. If you're looking for a handsome young godly man, Seth is the guy. And so the 3 of us, after the hour or 2 that we're off praying, we'll walk together around the property, praying out loud, sharing the stuff that's on our heart, and believing that even the conversation is prayer, but then specifically crying out to God, gratitude, headache, heartache, all those sorts of things, but together.
Yeah.
I think that does help me focus. I pray with the pastors in our area every Wednesday morning, and that's a good thing for me to do. Otherwise, I just find something else to do. Yeah. I don't know what it is about prayer, but I can just push it down the priority list, even when my heart of hearts knows it's a top priority issue. So when I commit myself to Wednesday mornings, I know I'm after it. Yeah. Okay, so we're on to like these religious questions. We're talking about God, talking about prayer. Next one up is angels. So I don't know what an expert in angels is called, but I know you're not an expert.
That would not be me.
Angels, but let's talk about it, because I think people are interested in spiritual things, and they're wondering, How about if I just like pray to the angels, or could I just engage with the angels? They seem like a softer landing than dealing with Almighty God.
Yeah. Well, I think the Bible tells us that there are these spiritual beings, spiritual forces we don't always see, but they are influencing us. They are interacting with us. And when it comes to angels, so these would be, I guess you would say, spiritual beings of goodness or of light. They're God's angels. And they appear in the Bible in two different ways. The one way is that they show up and they're so amazing and powerful that people just end up flat on their face in front of them. They're kind of scary because they're just so amazing. And they are coming with a really specific message for a specific person at a specific time. And that's what they're doing. And so the conversations seem kind of short when an angel shows up that way, not very long. There's not a sense of an ongoing conversation. The other way they show up is we don't actually recognize them. They appear as another person and they move among us unnoticed. And we don't even know if we're having a conversation with them. And so that's how we see people interacting with angels in the Bible. What we do see people, or who we see people interacting with, is God. That's who we are invited to pray to, invited to talk to. And I was kind of thinking, going back to the image that you shared, I mean, it's like a parent who has a child. God is like a parent and we are like his children. And what parent would want their child to, talk to someone else to talk to them? Like he wants this direct relationship with us. And so praying is best directed toward God. I think the other thing that we find in the Bible too is just a little bit of a caution, is that the not nice spiritual beings, the dark ones, sometimes we use the word demons, they love to pretend to be angels of light. And so if we're interacting with a being that has a really high interest in having an ongoing conversation with us, that's probably a sign that it's actually not one of the good ones, but it's one that's out to deceive us and ultimately kind of wreck our lives.
There's a lot there, right? And I think people are looking for some kind of connection with the supernatural, with the spiritual. And you see these signs show up for mystics and palm readings and tarot cards and all those sorts of things. And I've dealt with people, crushed parents who've lost a loved one, lost a little one, lost a teenager. And they go to somebody who's going to tell them what the other person's saying. And it's crazy accurate. Like, I know that my jacket's there and I know that you wore my sweater and all those sorts of things. And these demonic presences can actually tell things while they're posing to be the dead person or posing to be something else. And inadvertently, people open themselves up to things that we would just like, hey, that's not the place for you. And this doesn't go to good places. No. So, but we acknowledge in our day and age, there's sort of this like science and none of these things exist. Angels, demons. And then there's also this other reaction to like, I'm open to everything. Yeah. And that's a scarier proposition, to have everything open and available. Okay, so we're hitting all the high stuff, all the fun things. God, prayer, angels. How about church? Like what do you do with church? It seems to be a funny thing that happens. But what if I was like brand new to this game and thought maybe I would go to church because that seems to be what some believers do? What would you advise me about that?
Yeah, I've had some conversations with some people who have been to church for the first time, and it can be intimidating. It's a courageous thing to do because you don't know what to expect. I would say that if you can at all, if you're interested in checking out a church, if there's someone who already is a part of a church, maybe ask if you can go along with them. That's a really great first step. But say you don't have someone that you can just show up at a church and you don't have to pay or anything like that. You get to just be there. And if you were to come to our church, for example, St. Paul's, we would want to welcome you. We'd want to help you find a seat there. If you come on a Sunday morning, which is when everyone comes, there would be some singing. There would be probably Andrew or maybe myself talking for a bit from the Bible. And then a lot of people would want to get to know you. If that even feels a little bit scary, which I get, then you can check out a church online first before you start to attend and get a sense like, what do I wear, or things like that. And I know that a lot of people do that. What would you say, though? So,
church is kind of a weird term, isn't it? Because it kind of is a building, and it kind of misses the point that it's really it's a congregate. It's a community.
Yeah.
The word congregation, the root of it is Gregory, which, I mean, some people might be named Gregory, but it's those are the watchers, the ones who are watching for Jesus, waiting together. And so there's this sense that we're in this together, listening to the living God. That happens on a Sunday morning here, and that's probably the next step after checking things online. And some of the good watching, some of the good sort of being together as believers happens in small groups. Because the nature of church can be like one direction, stage to chairs. And so a small group puts the chairs in a circle, and we get to learn and listen from each other and ask good and hard questions. So that's like when I think of church, I think of an alive organism, if I can say it that way, sort of something that moves, not sort of a stale building. The building is a tool for gathering. But
I
would love to have you at St. Paul's. Yeah. Gosh, come and please say hi if you did. Okay, last thoughts before we wrap this thing up. Any wise nuggets?
I don't feel like I have any more wise nuggets today.
That's all we got.
We got everything.
So thanks for joining us. Thanks for being part of this journey with us. If you do have questions, apparently you can email us at questions@stpauls.ca, SAINTPAULS.ca. And in fact, you can actually just send them to Lenita at stpauls.ca or Andrew at stpauls.ca. We're grateful to be in your lives. Hope to meet you someday soon. Take care.